We can only, I can only be so much part of the revolution in order to, try to have a better Colorado Springs, El Paso County, Pikes Peak region. You, as part of we, the people who are the government here, really need to be involved. And so we hope that you've been liking how we've approached things, because a lot of people, there's something here in there's something here in our county, especially when it comes to nonprofits, that someone gets an idea and then they start a nonprofit and they start doing something new, and it seems like they didn't look around to see if anybody else was doing it already and coming alongside them. I like to join in with other people, but the things that I've gotten involved in, that I've started, because I like starting stuff, is, and I understand why people do that. I didn't see anybody else doing it. And so here on the Peak, when we come in to do citizen journalism, to be this hyper-local news source here, to come and do what we feel the local media isn't doing, we also wanted to approach the election that way. And so we've been doing things, as I like to say, Peak style. And so we brought in this week 2 candidates, competing candidates for House District, and had a civil discussion. And I think it went well, and we're looking to do more of that next week on different issues. Not to have a debate, not to have an argument, but to have a civil discussion, and so that you, rather than getting caught up in rhetoric, can hear both sides represented as well as possible, and really everybody should have a right to represent themselves as well as possible. We saw what happened during the presidential debates, where the moderators were biasing one candidate and actually obstructing a candidate. That's horrible. The media is never supposed to do that. So please check out our podcast as we put these up online. You may miss the daily show. We understand you may not be in your car. You may be busy between 3 and 4 p.m. But on the peak.news, we have that. And we've also been live streaming on Facebook, and I believe we are right now, and our YouTube channel, and the Peak News Media on Facebook. The Peak News Media is our channel. So if you want to see us sitting here in the booth and talking about that stuff, you can do that too. And get all of this information, process it. Also, voter guides. I put out a voter guide called Church Voter Guides. We have our way of doing things where we interview the candidates, survey the candidates in writing, and publish their results. We don't give you an opinion about who to vote for. And we did that with the ballot initiatives too. We put together information on the ballot initiatives, not what to vote for or why, but giving you that information. That's what we do at churchvoterguides.org. So check that out before you vote. But also on our website, we have lists of lots of other voter guides. One's on the left, on the right, in between, individuals, news sites. Get as much information as you can. And please don't wait to open your ballot until right before you vote, because man, it's long and and confusing. But don't disengage because of that. If you disengage, we've already lost. Your voice isn't being heard. And I heard something interesting today on that political candidates and political people spend their time reaching people who can help them. So if you don't vote, guess what? They don't care about you because you're not part of the process to put them, in a seat of power. So you're actually pulling yourself out of that too. Well, someone who's in the middle of all of this is the clerk and recorder from El Paso County, and we have him here today, Steve Schleiker, who is in charge of elections in the county, and we're going to be talking about election security throughout the hour. Steve Schleiker, welcome back to the Peak.
Absolutely. Hi, how are you, sir?
Doing well. It's a crazy season for me, as I'm sure for you, doing a radio program and a voter guide and all the other things that I'm involved in make it real crazy. But we're going to be learning about what's been going on down at the clerk and recorder office since you took the helm, coming up on 2 years ago, right?
Yes,
right,
sir.
Right. That was the 22 election. And so what we're going to be doing today, first we're going to learn about some things that, what Steve has done and focused on over the past couple of years to try to make, I ask him, gold standard, and he sort of laughs, like, what is that? We're human beings, right? Like that, just the claim of a gold standard is crazy to do in something where there's so many moving parts as an election, but they've done a lot. We're also going to talk about the Tina Peters trial, and what has that done? Has that brought a chilling effect over the clerk and recorder's office throughout Colorado and maybe beyond? And then getting into how can, what is going on and what are things that maybe can be done better. We're going to talk Dominion machines and voter rolls and all kinds of stuff that maybe on your mind, and what I would like you to do, because we're never going to be totally happy with what our elected officials do, but we need to respect that we did elect them and they are doing their best. Is you may not like what hasn't been done, but let's give some credit for what has, and also let's stay in it, so that we the people are continually trying to make things better. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to The Peak. We're talking about election security with our local El Paso County clerk and reporter, Steve Schleiker, and we'll be right back. Okay, cool. Okay, we're on page 2. Although I now go back, I did not mention my sponsors. Let's see what I missed here. Okay. 2, 3, 4. So we're on page 2.
Okay.
So that's a 10-minute segment. So
Okay.
if we're going to get to all 5 of these points, it's going to need to be
Let's go.
pretty quick. A minute and a half for each one.
Okay.
And remember, this means wrap it up 10-15 seconds, give it back. If I hold up a finger or two, that's a 1 or 2 minute budget for you.
Yep.
Otherwise, keep the energy and intensity up. Yes, sir.
Let me have you move this mic slightly. Want this in a little bit closer to you.
Awesome.
And let's see if we can angle it a bit better for you here. Try it. There's the bend I want in it.
Okay.
There we go.
Is there any way that you zero my counter in here?
No, there is not.
Because I zeroed it and then I got up and checked the camera and came back and it
There.
like
This should be perfect.
it zeroed without me touching it. I came back and it had gone back to 0 when I
Weird.
sat back down.
Yeah, no.
Because I was
so
I
you
was
see
30
that,
seconds off on the.
So you see that there's an auto button on it, but yours isn't even on.
No.
And that auto button takes old relay commands that our automation system doesn't throw to it anymore anyway.
It was really weird because
Yeah.
I zeroed it when the show actually started, and then when I came back and sat down, it was like 1 second
Huh.
and rolling. And then
That's weird.
at the
I've
end,
never
was
seen it do
30
that.
seconds came
Yeah.
up. Okay.
Never seen it do that. Maybe it was just a little
goes
blip
to the
of,
machine.
or some static electricity near
Okay.
it or something. Yeah.
Thanks, Matt. Okay, phone's on stun. Okay. Let's see. If we have time, we'll put in voter fraud in that longer segment before the ranked choice voting. We'll
Okay.
do that, and then if we don't have time for ranked choice voting and that, I'll bump it to segment 5 as part of our closing thing. So let's see what we can get to there. Okay, we're back in about 40 seconds. We did a voter guide with Jim Miller.
Did you?
Yeah, we have it up online now. I sat down with him for an hour and we just went through the blue book. And
Yeah.
it's funny and it's. Welcome back to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to AM 1460 and FM 101.1 The Answer, and we're talking election security. I don't like the phrase election integrity so much, even though it's true and even though it's relevant. It's just inflammatory because it immediately assumes that someone is not being integrous. But election security should be something that we all care about. It shouldn't be partisan at all, unless, of course, somebody's doing something criminal and they don't like it. So hopefully by using that term election security, we can all come together and try to fix this thing. I would hope that everybody wants, one citizen one vote, but as we know, not everybody does, especially as there is, looking like good news, and we may have, expected this all along when the border was opened up 4 years ago, that people are wanting non-citizens to be voting, thinking that that's a good idea for some reason. But we need to figure out how to make this so that there's confidence in the system, because a lot of people have checked out from voting, and I understand. I totally understand. I say this a bunch. I think the elections may be being stolen, and I still put out a voter guide at great time expense and money expense and everything else. And because you just got to stay in the game. So let's keep it moving forward. We have with us for the hour Steve Schleiker, who is the El Paso County Clerk and Recorder. Steve, again, welcome to the Peak.
Absolutely, Hein. Thank you.
Okay, so in this first segment, before we get to trying to slam you on machines and other stuff like that, I want you to, tell the good people out there, since you came into office, January of, when do you start here?
It was January of 2023.
January 2023. What have you done? What are you most, proud about that you've done in the Clerk and Recorder's office regarding election security?
Hein, as soon as I became Clerk and Recorder, within 30 days, I started working on the voter rolls, and I also went out to bid for a brand new ballot printing vendor. So we know here in El Paso County, our former print vendor was Runbeck, and I felt it was necessary. I saw that they had the contract for a number of years, but we went out to bid, and the team at that time that was on the panel selected a brand new vendor. But first and foremost was cleaning up the voter rolls was a priority, and I was the first clerk in the entire state that contracted with Experian. What that has led to from our November 2023 coordinated election to where we are today is a reduction of 245% undeliverable ballots. So we have gone from 38,000 undeliverable ballots down to 11,000. And keep in mind, this was 2 years ago. We've had more people move in here. More people are participating in the election. So, we have made great progress on the voter rolls. One of the things that I want to work with in the 2025 legislation is I also want to gain access to, the Department of Human Services database, and I also want to get into the State Jury Commission database and bounce our voter rolls off those. The reason why is because we know the Department of Human Services is providing benefits to illegal immigrants, and I want to be able to identify those folks that should not be or have mistakenly been put on the voter rolls. I can have that information. In addition, as on the State Jury Commission, is we know to be a juror, you have to be a U.S. citizen, so they have a list of illegal immigrants and also green card holders. So that is information that I feel that all clerk and recorders should be privy to as well. The other thing that we did is picked up from where my predecessor left off in 2022 is in our tabulation room where all the votes are counted is we completely gutted that room. We have all brand new tabulation machines and CPUs. And the reason for that is anything that had the ability to be connected to the internet with a modem, a network interface card, a Verizon card, an ISP, all that is gone in El Paso County. So we went ahead and completed that prior to the November 2023 election. The other thing that we launched was EPC VIP, Hein. What that is you can now watch the election live. So you can go out onto the website and look at the voter registration that's coming in, look at the daily count of all of the ballots that are coming in, and it's broken down by party, where you have the Democrats, the Republicans, the unaffiliated, and also our minor parties, where it's broken down, and we're also including census data that's in there.
What's the website for that?
It's EPC VIP, so if you go to the Clerk and Recorder's main site, you will see the link. You can pull it up. It is a GIS-based website where you can actually go to each precinct and look at the voter turnout as it's changing as we are bringing in the ballots. The other thing is I was the first Clerk and Recorder in the state to live stream all 41 of our ballot boxes. So our citizens can watch every single ballot box, the live stream as folks are casting their ballots, what is going on there. This has become extremely hot topic here in the state of Colorado because of transparency. And there's other counties that have adopted the same thing that we have done here in El Paso County. For example, Pueblo County has, Douglas County just went live several weeks ago with the same system. So it's starting to become where citizens are going, why aren't you doing what El Paso County is doing?
And it's also that there's something that cues or marks the video when there's it senses motion, so you don't have to just sit there watching an
Absolutely.
Okay.
So you don't have to sit there the whole entire time, Hein, but it will basically, it captures all the motion. You can go back and watch the video feed. I've done it many, many times. You know, where folks are sitting there videoing it and doing all kinds of things where you can go back going, hey, this doesn't look right. And now I have over 800,000 citizens that are election judges going, Steve, could you take a look at this one at Bear Creek Park? Something doesn't look right. So they bring it to me, I pull the information up, and anything that doesn't look right, we turn over to the investigator. The other thing that I just recently did, though, Hein, is I contracted with Severa. And this is basically an election auditing company. And what they are doing is they are sitting there and they are providing the ballots online with the cast vote record, which there is no other vendor out there that does that. So
what does that mean? Bring that down to more common language.
So basically you're matching vote to vote. And the other thing that's really important about it is if you particularly want to sit there and say, you know what, I really want to sit there and audit the ballots for a particular proposition or initiative that is on this ballot, all you have to do is put it in there and it will pull that information up. Or if you just want to do a particular commissioner district, it would exclude those ballots that aren't in that commissioner district and you could audit those individual ballots. But having the cast vote record next to the ballot is extremely important because those total numbers should match the vote cast record. You know, the other thing is just basically changing out all the equipment that we have in our in-person vote centers. We changed out all the archaic ballot on demand printers, and we also changed out the notebooks and replaced them with up-to-date laptops and ballot on demand printers where folks can come on in and say, I would like to have my ballot, and it's printed there. But a lot of that equipment was on its last leg, so we went ahead and replaced all that out.
Okay, and what about in-person voting?
Absolutely, and that is our in-person vote centers. So right now is for this election, we're going to have 38 in-person vote centers. And right now we are seeing a lot of people that are coming in. At the Citizen Service Center, we have seen over 150 voters each and every day. We are anticipating nearly 38,000 in-person voters for this election.
So what percentage of people so far, we're here on, what is today, the 24th, what percentage of people have voted so far in the county?
So far, we are at about 8%. And I'm trying to get
Is that ahead of normal, or is that pretty much lining up with normal?
Hi, we're about 50,000 behind 2020.
Really?
Yeah.
Because we're hearing around the country that there's a lot of people early voting, but you haven't seen it in the county here.
No, we have not seen it in the county, and I basically put that on our ballot, the length of our ballot. Individuals are doing a lot of research. But one thing I want to share is I'm pushing early voting. And the reason for that is I want to get early election night reporting out as soon as possible. But if people are standing in line still to vote, we can't put that out there.
Yeah. Well, to get more information while you're doing that, good segue, thank you. Go to churchvoterguides.org, churchvoterguides.org. We surveyed the candidates. You can read exactly what they sent in. We don't edit it. As well, we have information on ballot initiatives and even links to other voter guides. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about the Tina Peters trial, and did it have a chilling effect on the county clerks? We'll be right back. Okay, cool. Okay. Okay, page 3. This is a 3.5-minute break, so
Absolutely.
let's see. On top of everything, my eldest sister passed away last week, and my wife and I flew out on a red-eye Saturday night for a Sunday funeral, and then came back Monday night. So with like no sleep on either.
Where was she at?
Philadelphia.
Oh, really?
So
Yeah.
So on top of like trying to get the voter guide, I was like, oh man, like of all the weeks,
Yeah.
finishing the voter guide, and we were actually our yearly party we have for Feast of Tabernacles. Are you on our list? You get our invite?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you can come, we're having it on Saturday. If you can come.
Yeah.
Anytime. We were supposed to have that last Sunday, and we
I saw you guys
postponed
moved it,
Yeah,
yeah.
we moved it. So it was like really of all the weekends I had. Friday night we still went up to Charlie Kirk, which was really good up at
Yep.
Terrace. But then Saturday night there was a concert at the Broadmoor that Salem was involved in, and we had
Yeah.
VIP suite and all this stuff, and I gave the tickets to my son. Like I'd never had a weekend, and then an all-day party on Sunday,
Yeah.
and I'm like, of all the weekends, she was in hospice for a little bit,
Oh my gosh.
but it was like, oh man. So we flew in on a red eye and got no sleep, and went all day Sunday, and
Yeah.
so I'm still
Yeah.
sort of recovering from
That's hard. You know, in
and
fact,
the
it's
intensity of the whole, obviously,
Yeah.
the whole.
the emotional. You know, you just sit there and just the emotional tiredness and.
Yeah.
But yeah, things have picked up. We got all the judges in there, and we're starting to count tomorrow. And it's
Okay.
like, let's go.
So you start ahead of time. You're able to start counting.
Right.
But it's kept. Now, how is it kept? We have 1 minute. How is it kept? I mean, do anybody in your office actually see the results, or they're feeding them into the machines without seeing the results?
Right. So there's one individual who's my IS manager, and is the only one that has access to those reports.
Okay, that's an interesting thing. Let's see if
Yep.
there's any tip if somebody
Yeah.
questions.
So Chaim, I am not privy to that information until election night during our first report.
Okay. Okay. And is there some secondaries or a back? I mean, how do we know that stays secure in the machines and everything? That
Yeah.
information.
So we basically, just going ahead and, we actually sit there and back the information up. We actually have the hard copies. We're going to be putting everything out there on the internet for everybody. So we're going to have all that backed up. But by law, we have to keep the hard copies for 25
Right.
months. So if anybody sat there and said, hey, I want to go ahead and count this stuff. Yep.
Welcome back to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to AM 1460 and FM 101.1 The Answer, and we're talking election security this whole hour with Steve Schleiker, who's the El Paso County Clerk and Recorder. And in this segment, we're going to be talking about the Tina Peters trial. There's no time to cover it all. If you don't know about it, or maybe you know a lot about it, go and research that for yourself. But basically, up in Mesa County, Tina Peters, Clerk and Recorder, she decided to do something that was, she felt it was her responsibility to do, but it was illegal. Had the trial, there was a lot of controversy around the trial, and she has now been sentenced to 9 years in prison for what she did. And since I have a clerk and recorder, a Colorado clerk and recorder in front of me, I wanted to get his impressions of the trial, and also ask do you feel that this is, may very well have a chilling effect to how clerk and recorders may operate, and who's responsible. So Steve Schleiker, what are your impressions of what happened with Tina Peters and specifically her trial?
So, Chaim, when I ran to be clerk and recorder was in 2022, and when all of this occurred with Tina Peters was during the 2020 election. However, my primary was all about Tina Peters, things going on with election and security, just a number of different things. But I will sit there and tell you is I felt, and what I have learned, is the lack of leadership that should have been afforded to her.
From where?
Either from the Colorado County Clerks Association, some of the senior clerks saying, hey, you know what, we understand where you're going with this, but hey, let's help you out. And let's sit there and talk about backing you up as far as changing the laws to make this where you're not breaking the law. So, one of the things is I felt that she was abandoned, just in conversations that I have had in some of the conferences. And as you could probably, note that not many of the clerks ever showed up to any of the hearings or anything like that. I have never ever met Tina or even, conversed with her, because this is something where she was removed from office before I was even sworn in. Your other question though, Chaim, is will this have a chilling effect? Absolutely. I mean, you're starting to see where the state has started passing bills to take away some of the responsibilities of the clerk and recorders, which I don't think they have the right to do that.
Such as?
So the Secretary of State has basically made rules and passed statute where a clerk and recorder can no longer enter any of the ballot processing or the ballot tabulation room, which I feel the voters of El Paso County, they elected me to be able to do that and had the trust in me to do that. But I have to be escorted into these rooms, not allowed to have any kind of passcodes or,
Really?
and not allowed to have any of this stuff. So these are things basically when you're talking about after Tina Peters was the effect that came down. And that Senate bill is really, behind closed doors, people whispered as the Tina Peters bill and Jenna Griswold passing that Senate bill and getting her, friends up to the legislature to get that to pass. One of the things is many want it repealed. And I absolutely agree with that because I feel that the voters of El Paso County have the ultimate voice, not the Secretary of State. And when they're electing somebody to sit there and fill those shoes is like, hey Steve, we want you to be able to tell us firsthand what is going on in this room and what's going on in this room and now having to be escorted and, just a number of different things. The other thing though is if there's anything positive that came from this trial, which I feel 9 years is extreme, is the changes that I've made here in El Paso County are because of the questions that citizens basically started asking that were generated by Tina Peters.
So it woke people up to what you do.
Absolutely. It woke people up. And I started listening and, Chaim, I just felt like, you know what, I'm going to listen to individuals and believe it or not, this is not a partisan issue. This is not a Republican.
Shouldn't be.
Absolutely not. It's not a Republican, a Democrat, or unaffiliated issue. Everybody has the same concern of election security. And so the stuff that occurred from that, matter with Tina Peters created a lot of questions, and I feel a good clerk and recorder should address those questions.
Wow, this is opening up a can of worms. I think we need to really do some investigative reporting here, and we invite you. I'll segue that into them. We invite you to join us here at the Peak as a citizen journalist. Go on thepeak.news, find out more about that, sign up, and help us to tell these stories to bring transparency, much needed transparency to our region. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. When we come back, we're going to be talking Dominion. Okay, this is just 2 minutes. Wow, that's horrible. So who do they think are supposed to be responsible for these things?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not watching over it.
Yeah. So, it's one of those things where...
and who goes into the room with you, like police officers?
No, in fact, it's one of my staff.
So it's just that there's a witness, that you can't go in there by yourself?
Correct.
Okay, well.
Yep. So the things that Tina got charged with, basically, here's what it reminds me of, Chaim, is those of us that have kids, if one of them makes a mistake, is, you punish that individual. But what Jenna Griswold did, she punished the whole entire state. And she did that Senate bill, and she basically passed it, got with all of her, Democrat friends up there.
Everything's a power grab.
Yep.
Anytime, never let a crisis go to waste.
Yep.
They're very good.
Yep.
They're very good at, no matter what, they end up increasing their own power.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll get you that stuff for that affidavit I got in, because I'd like it dealt with. I'd like it publicly dealt with, because it never was. And I just think all of this leads to people not having confidence in the system, and which I think is part of the whole Marxist plan to, hey, we're in live stream still.
Yeah.
So if anybody's listening, it's part, I believe personally that, it's part of that destabilization plan. I mean, if people don't have confidence in our system, then,
And Chaim, that's something that, to me, the first day I came in there was, concentrating on transparency and try to, bring some of the confidence back.
We're on page 4, by the way. We're back in 20 seconds.
Okay.
Finish your thought.
Yeah, is just bring the the confidence back. I think I shared with you the story where I'm out there talking to my neighbors or folks up at King Super, how much faith they had in the election system, and 9 out of 10 said none.
Welcome back to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to AM 1460 and FM 101.1 The Answer. And in order to inject, well, a different view and some humor into the election system here in El Paso County, I don't think anybody is doing anything like this. Jim Miller, just a guy who you hear at the end of every Peak program, we just released yesterday Jim Miller's Just a Guide, and you can get that on the Peak.news. Go to the Peak.news website. There's a tab for that, or you can go to the Peak.news/Just a Guide, Guide. And I sat down with Jim for an hour. We went through the Blue Book, and Jim, obviously, with very little filter, if any filter at all, as well as some humor and his opinion on what he thinks about the 14 ballot initiatives in the state and the 3 here in Colorado Springs. So check that out, and please share it around with as many people as you can, because with everything going on, you know, it's good to laugh sometimes, even with this. If not, we might cry. So we have for the hour Steve Schleiker, El Paso County Clerk and Recorder, and we're talking election security. And really, you know, yes, we need secure elections, but so much of the doubt that is in people's minds has come down, you know, to just checking out of the system, not voting. We just got information from George Barna, the Christian pollster, that half the Christians in America are not planning to vote. Now, he blames it on the pastors overall for not talking to them, and yeah, we can do that. But overall, people have lost confidence in the system. And at the break, Steve, you were telling me a story of talking to the people in the area regarding their confidence in our elections. Why do you tell that?
Yeah, you know, when I decided to run for Clerk and Recorder, Chaim, you know, I was out there talking to folks and not asking party affiliation, talking to neighbors, talking to folks at King Supers, and 9 out of 10 individuals, and it was a very simple question, is how much confidence do you have in our election system here in the state of Colorado or El Paso County? And 9 out of 10 were like, none at all. Some will say, you know, I think it's okay, but I have concerns. But it's very eye-opening when 90% of the folks that I spoke to shared concerns. And I just, you know, looked at that going, you know, if I am elected, I have got a lot of work to do here in the county.
And we did. If you didn't catch the first segment, you can catch our podcast on this or our live stream on Facebook and YouTube in the recording about what Steve has done over the past almost 2 years in that office. But let's talk about the big elephant in the room, Dominion machines. That is something that people, you know, we got to get rid of the machines. We got to go back to paper ballots, same day voting, hand counting, etc. And we'll mention that in a minute. But why is Colorado using Dominion machines? And in your opinion, should we be using Dominion machines?
So, Chaim, the reason why Colorado is using machines because it became a state law, and so part of that law specifically says is you have to use, you know, electromagnetic tabulation machines. The other thing is the state of Colorado, the Secretary of State, has already come down and says there's only 2 certified vendors that the clerk and recorders can use, and it's either Dominion or Clear Ballot. So right now, 62 counties in the state of Colorado use Dominion. 2 counties use Clear Ballot, and I believe Elbert County is getting ready to go to Clear Ballot, which would bring them to 3. But that is the reason why, is it's in law, and it's also a directive by the Secretary of State. The other thing is, should we be using them? That is a really good question, because the concern that I have is if going to hand counting, is I've seen firsthand the mistakes that come in with hand counting. And I saw it during the Republican Central Committee meeting when we ran that election, and the hand count took us over 7 hours to tally up 200 votes. And there was a number of mistakes that were constantly made. But there is an error that actually comes with that. And so, you know, I know there's a great debate, you know, coming with the tabulation machines, but at the same time, I think the concern with many voters is, are tabulation machines okay to use if they cannot be connected to a network or be hacked? And so that is now a discussion where before, absolutely, the concerned citizens were, hey, these can be hacked. They can be, you know, hooked up to the internet. Absolutely, they could be. However, as you know, I just shared with you, in El Paso County, they cannot. And other counties are moving towards that same thing where they cannot be hooked up to the internet.
Well, and I understand the confidence because now you're saying we were being told they can't before when they could. So now the concern always was, what about the software
Right.
that's being run in these machines? And this is proprietary software. It's not something, unless you let me know that you can access. People have concerns that, hey Steve, great you've cleaned up the voter rolls, great that we have cameras streaming on the drop boxes, but it's it's who counts the votes, right? That counts.
Exactly.
What if the machines are already pre-programmed to mess with the votes and skew it in a certain direction? What's your response to that concern?
I am really glad you asked that, because what it comes down to is there's a lot of misconception in regards to the logic and accuracy test that we run prior to every
What is a
election.
what is a logic and accuracy?
So a logic and accuracy test is in a three-part test, is where first and foremost is we turn the tabulation machines on to make sure they operate correctly. Keep in mind, this is actually done by bipartisan judges. This test is not done by Dominion. It is not done by my staff. These are bipartisan judges that are assigned by our two major parties. So they actually come in and they serve as the L&T testing board. So they go through there. This year we had 30,000 test ballots with a known election result. We ran all 30,000 ballots through each tabulation machine, and we have to come to that exact same result that is already known. At the end of that is then the election judges sit down and they fill out 25 ballots however they want. And we put them through each of the 8 tabulation machines. We get the report, then they hand count. That hand count has to match that report. So not only do we have a report from the 30,000 test ballots, but we also have a report from the hand count as well. This is open to everybody. We put a media release out there. We ask the public to show up. We ask the major parties to show up, the voters to show up. And it's absolutely open where you can actually watch this process. We have videotaped it. But it's just one of those things where the L&T is absolutely, you do have a hand count process in that.
And between the logic and accuracy test and when you're going to be running the actual ballots through, is there any updating of the software or anything that goes on?
Absolutely not. In fact, everything is locked down. When you sit there, and basically everything's under 24/7 security cameras, locked doors, so there is absolutely no update whatsoever.
Okay. Let's talk about voter fraud overall. Are we seeing that? I know that our district attorney here has a voter fraud unit specifically, which is not something everywhere. Are we seeing any of that as far as people trying to defraud from the ballot side or anywhere else?
So one thing I really respect about Michael Allen is we're the only district
That's our district attorney.
Yes. Only district attorney and only a clerk recorder in the state of Colorado where he has dedicated an investigator strictly to me for property and voter fraud. And so that is their job, is property and voter fraud. So with that being said, is voter fraud is very minimal. We do sit there, and individuals will sit there and cast 2 ballots. And we sat there, the last election, there was a handful of them. But here's what they're doing, is they're so excited to participate, they will go to a VSPC and cast their ballot. Then their mail-in ballot comes in and they cast that one. It will be caught. And so basically, voting twice, doing like that, and it was 3 individuals. It gets turned over to the district attorney for investigation and charged with a felony. So these are things where, folks, if you do not want to vote your mail-in ballot, throw it away. Go to the VSPC, but do not vote both ballots. The other thing is a signature verification. Is we have everybody's signature from when you go to the DMV, when you signed your last ballot or ballots, from previous elections. Is we all have that all that information. If your signature does not match up, is we will catch it and we will reach out to you to come cure your ballot. But Hein, as far as voter fraud, it is a very, very small percentage. It does get caught and is turned over to the DA for investigation.
Let's talk about the security envelopes. Have they changed at all? Because I've actually been shown how you can hold up a light and see how someone voted right inside there. What's your take on that?
Absolutely. So we did change that up. We converted our information sheet into a secure where you could just wrap your ballot inside that. Because years ago, if you remember, there used to be a security sleeve where you would vote your ballot, put it inside the security sleeve, then it would go inside the envelope. However, the state got rid of the security sleeve because a majority of the voters were using the ballot drop boxes. About 98% of our voters vote via the drop box.
Because the concern is scanning while it's in the mail.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what we did is we changed the fold, we changed everything on our instruction sheets. And, you know, I did talk to a House District Rep about this, and basically our instruction sheet here in El Paso County now serves as a secrecy sleeve.
Okay, last question, we have about a minute. Ranked choice voting, Prop 131, would completely change the voting system here in Colorado. What's your take, what's your opinion on ranked choice voting and jungle primary?
I'm just going to be very simple, not a fan, and for several different reasons. One of which, everything you and I have been talking about in regards to audits and election night reporting is all going to be gone. There is no way to audit this. There's no way to sit there and tell a candidate, a campaign, a major party, or voters how you moved votes from the bottom of the bucket to the top of the bucket. The other thing that I'm concerned about is no one is talking about how much money it's going to take the state of Colorado or the voters of El Paso County to convert from the system we are in now to the new system. And I like to use Alaska as an example. Is Alaska passed ranked choice voting 2 years ago. It cost them millions of dollars to adopt it. They have it on the ballot this year to repeal it. It's going to cost them millions of dollars to go back to what they did. The other thing that is very concerning is 85% of the municipalities and states that have incorporated ranked choice voting have repealed it.
You're listening to The Peak. We have Steve Schleiker, El Paso County Clerk and Recorder, with us. When we come back, we're going to be talking about what can still be done to make our elections more secure here in El Paso County, Colorado, and our nation. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman, and we'll be right back on The Peak. Cool, good segment. We got to a lot.
Golly, I thought I was talking fast, Chaim.
That was good. That was good. Okay, so this will be. Let me just check my timing on the rant, but we have about 5 minutes. So
Okay.
So if you can, a couple of things that you would like to.
Yeah.
I'll ask you, like, if you had unlimited budgets, unlimited, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
What would you do?
Certified dental implant specialist in Southern Colorado. We provide individual treatment solutions that will assist you in maintaining your smile investment for years to come, including dental implants, IT, crowns, and dentures. For more information and to book a free consultation, visit pickledental.com. That's pickledental.com.
Full Armor Sports Teams has a new facility located at 2380 Montebello near North Academy and Union. With 2 pools for swim lessons and Full Armor swim teams, a weight room for powerlifting and strength conditioning, a martial arts room, and more. Full Armor Sports Teams is Christ-centered and family-oriented, bringing the youth of Colorado Springs together. For more info on the new facility and programs, contact them at fullarmorsportsteams.com or call 719-629-SWIM. Us, good stuff. Hi, Peter Larson. Chief Electrician at All-Star Electric. Whole house surge protection to generator connection to simply adding an outlet and everything in between. All-Star Electric is a veteran-owned family business serving the Pikes Peak region with residential and commercial service since 2006.
Your phone blowing up too.
No.
Yeah.
See things. Okay, so back in 1 minute.
Winter is on the way again. Is your heating system ready? Call Home Comfort Heating and Air, your local experts to tune up or replace your home furnace. Keep it warm now and for many years to come. Hi, this is Chaim Goldman, the Watchman, and our family depends on Home Comfort to service our home's entire HVAC system. They've been providing superior service to both residential and commercial clients since 2008. Get a fast response from their family-owned and operated business with a trusted reputation. Based in the Peyton Falcon area, they serve
Yeah, mostly with me, it's been this 79.
Home Comfort installs and
This,
services all types
yeah,
of furnaces
it's
and
like
air conditioning systems.
Yeah.
how silent the church has been on it. All these giant ministries. There's like no money that people have put. Like it just boggles my mind. But
Because once that thing goes into you know, the Constitution is difficult to get out of there.
No, and all the different things that can't even be regulated.
Yeah.
Welcome back to The Peak on AM 1460 and FM 101.1 The Answer. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman, and this is our final segment with Steve Schleiker, El Paso County Clerk and Recorder. We've been talking about election security throughout this hour, and so in this final segment, wanted to talk about, you know, what can still be done. So, Steve, you know, if you had unlimited resources, unlimited budgets, unlimited power to do stuff, what would you do, you know, other than like individually, you know, getting the vote from each voter? You know, well, what realistically can still be done under your tenure? You got two more years at least, to improve things here and not only make the elections better, but bring confidence back into the system.
You know, Chaim, I'm glad you brought up unlimited budget, and you know, if you're able to sit there and wave the Harry Potter wand, what would you do? You know, first and foremost, Chaim, is change out the ballot boxes. I would like to see the ballot boxes have a more accountability, where, you know, if a voter sit there, no different than our ATM machine, and once you insert your ballot, it should basically provide, you know, a report, you know, and a receipt to the voter saying, I cast my ballot on such and such a date, at, you know, such and such a time, and those receipts should be matching exactly to the reports that, you know, come to the clerk and recorder's office. You know, and just having that accountability and things like that, where you have the cameras on there and you're sitting here watching individuals, but you could only put one ballot at a time into these machines and be accounted for. The other thing that I really
Because now legally people can drop 10 in.
Right, during the entire election, not in one day or things like that, but during the entire election. But you know, that leaves a lot of questions out there going, who's actually going to sit there and count a person if they bring in 10, that 3 days down the road they're bringing another 10? You know, how do you catch that? But the other thing though, Chaim, is I really would like to start a discussion and look at the way we get our ballots to the voter. Because right now we use the USPS system, and although they do an amazing job, there is a portion where voters don't get their ballots. They don't know why they don't get their ballots, and they become, you know, undeliverable. We look at their voter registration, everything is correct, but I know folks are like, what about going back to the precinct level? To me, what we do for healthcare facilities, Chaim, is we actually print those individuals' ballots and we hand deliver them. We go to the facility. So the thoughts that I have, as crazy as it may be, is what about just going to a precinct and telling everybody there that the clerk and recorder is going to hand out your ballot, where you come in and you show the ID, you get your ballot and you go. You know, there's stories of ballots being taken out of people's mailbox. They don't have a community mailbox, you know, things like that. But I think it's a discussion worth having. I don't think it's going to be a very popular one, but it's just one that I feel is no different than how we treat our healthcare facilities when we hand deliver the ballots to those voters.
What about, and we have about 30 seconds left, so about voter ID, people actually showing ID to vote. It used to be when you had the machines, when you had to go in person, now you're just dropping them off.
I am a very strong proponent for voter ID. Absolutely.
And the laws in the state are?
You know, you basically, to register, you show voter ID, and you also have to show it as far as being a resident, but you can show a utility bill, you could show, you know, a number of different things. Somebody can come in with a Nebraska ID showing that they are a citizen, but 22 days before election, they can come in with a utility bill, cable bill, things like that, to show that they've been here more than 22 days.
No, but and as far as signature verification, how quickly is that done? You know?
Absolutely. So it is done pretty quick, but the thing is, Chaim, that's done by human eyes. So we actually have judges that are actually doing that. So every signature is looked at by human eyes.
Okay. Okay, we're out of time. Steve Schleiker, clerk and recorder. It is a busy season for you, Steve. Really appreciate you coming down.
Absolutely.
And being on the Peak. And to check out the county clerk website, go to El Paso County Clerk and check out. You can view what's going on. You can watch the video feeds. You can do all that. And also, I want you to get Jim Miller, who's just about to come on. Jim Miller's Just a Guide. Go to the peak.news and hit the Just a Guide tab and hear Jim's take on the ballot initiatives. And now Jim is asking, are you better off than 4 years ago? Hey Matt, it's on the lockout screen, but you had logged in. You had logged in under your own account right now. Okay, so if I log back in, it should be there. Okay, I'll give you a fist bump.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot, Steve.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
It's definitely daytime.
Buy groceries? Is it easier to drive on the road? Is it to fill up your car? Is it easier to take time off and hang out with your family? Is it easier to sit down and watch a movie with your kids? Is it? Is it any better? Any more affordable? Any easier? Look guys, it's voting season, it's miserable. We want it better, we need to be better, we need to do it better. I'm Jim Miller, I'm just a guy who listens to me.
Where would I find the street? When I tapped it, it was on the lockout screen, and then.
Well, let's
and then
take a
when
look
I,
at it.
When I logged in,
We want this one. We want that one. Your session has stopped. Something went wrong. Oh, okay. Live. Okay, it says we're live. Let's refresh our live feed.
that's why I always run the camera.
Yeah. Was it running?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I see the light on it. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Yeah, we're up here. We are back. I don't know if it actually had cut out or not. Oh, it's showing me twice on there. That's fascinating. I don't know why. There's two of me on there now.
Oh.
I don't know why it's doing that. There's only one feed. It's doing that because it feels like it.
I guess I should get some kind of dedicated device for
There
that.
we go. It flipped back over. Yeah, I talked to Zach about taking that computer that's underneath there and at least hooking it up into Riverside, because we shouldn't need any, IT shouldn't have to approve any stuff to get
Right.
that. You don't have to install any software on there. And where are we at?
Well, 1 minute.
Okay. So that's something we can look at doing in the future.
And then we could have our account in there, and then when it's
Yeah.
time to stream, we could just log into it.
Yep. And I showed him I showed him a cool way where we could access that computer from in there. So
The problem is this is the computer I'm using right up until
Right.
airtime every time, so,
Yep.
okay, thanks. Thank you for joining us for the Peak News as we're cruising through the election season. You have about 10, 11 more days to vote. Make sure to open up your ballot, my fellow citizens of the Pikes Peak region. Open it up, check it out, ask questions, get information from wherever you can, and make the best decision that you can. We all are in this together. And you can't check out. I'm not going to let you do that. I'm not doing it. I have the radio show. I do a voter guide, a lot of other stuff. You can vote, and you can also join us here at the Peak. If media in any way interests you, if you like asking good questions and getting answers and providing it, there's a lot of you out there, I know. Well, join us here at the Peak in some way. There's no major commitment. We don't want good storytellers who will operate with journalistic integrity. If people say, is that such a thing? Yes, it is such a thing. And that's what we're doing here at the Peak. Excuse me, as I'm losing my voice a little bit. Want to provide for you some resources, especially churchvoterguides.org. Again, this doesn't have to do about Christian candidates. It's just we named it that because churches and other nonprofits tend to stay away from the elections. In fact, we hear that 50% of Christians in America are planning not to vote. And this is why we started almost 4 years ago, was to get this information to everyone, but especially the Christian voter. But you can just use it because we don't bias it at all. We print exactly what the candidates send us, up to 120 words per answer. We also have information on ballot initiatives, as well as links to a variety of other voter guides. And we want you to watch Jim Miller's Just a Guide, so go to thepeak.news now, click the Just a Guide tab at the top, and hear what Jim has to say. We added a little bit of humor to the election process. Well, Friday we're not here, but Dirk Hobbs is at 3 p.m. with the Southern Colorado Business Forum and Digest. Monday we're tackling questions 2D and 300 on the ballot about recreational marijuana. Next week we're also talking constitutional abortion, ranked choice voting, and more. Coming up next is a Larry Elder Show. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. We say the quiet stuff out loud. Shalom.